Okay, now we're going to talk about mirroring backups. Minion backup makes this really easy. All you have to do is set mirror equal to 1, if I can get this to highlight, in backup settings. And then let's go take a look at it. Right there, mirror equals 1. Now, it's the same thing as it is for all the other stuff, right? You can mirror some databases and not mirror other databases. You just have to enter in a row for each one. And remember, once you're at the database level, you can't go back. So if you enter in an exception here, then it'll never go back to Minion default again. It'll always stay at that database. And you can even do it per backup type. So you can even say that you want to mirror the full backups, but you don't want to mirror diffs or logs, something like that, right? So you've got a wide range of things that you can do here for really, really fine control. Now we're going to test this, but we're going to test it using the backup statement like we did in a couple of the other videos. So backup statement get, again, is just the SP that Minion calls to build the statements. And it's an excellent tool for making sure it's going to do what you want it to do. And so we'll pass in the database name, the backup type, and the size of the database in gigs. So we're just going to test a single gig database for now. Let's take a look at what we've got here to set this up. So we started out by setting it up. We set mirror equal to 1. Now we just have to define paths. So right now all we have is Minion default row in here. But we've got another one in here for is mirror equal true, so that makes it a mirror drive. And we've got this going to C:\\SQL backup mirror. Now, it can have its own retention period. Let's go ahead and set that one for 2 days instead. If the 4 will hit 2 days, there we go. So you can have a different retention period for your primary backup file and for your mirrored backup file. So if you want to keep your mirrors on another drive for a couple extra days, then you're welcome to do that. Now, that's really all that's required. Let's go ahead and say this is the Minion default mirror, just because we like to keep these comments in there so that we know what the drive is for, and make sure, of course, that it's active. There we go. So when I run this, I should get, oops, we're in the wrong thing. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. I should get 2 files, one for the main backup file and one for the mirror. And here's what I've got right here, the backup path. One of them is going to backups, the other one is going to mirror. And if you take a look at the command, I'll just bring that over here, then you can see the first one is going to see backups and it's mirroring to C:\mirror. And it's really that easy. If you want to stripe a mirror, it's that easy as well. So let's say that I want to back up to multiple drives. I want to stripe it. We've already seen the striping video, right? If you haven't seen the striping video, go look at the striping video and you'll know what I'm doing here. But I'm gonna copy this one instead, and I'll stripe this one to 3 different drives. There we go. Let me refresh that. All right, so I've got this one. We'll say backups 2. And 3. There we go. So I'm going to back up to 3 different drives. I'm going to stripe it to 3 different drives, but I'm only going to mirror to 1 drive. So I can do that, right? Let's go ahead and take a look and see what that looks like. There we go. Now, for this 1 gig database, this is what I mean when I say that this is a really good way to test it, because I forgot to change the size of the database. Because for the size of the database, if you look over here in thresholds, I'm only using 1 file. So I can specify 3 stripes if I want to, but I can't stripe a single file across multiple drives, right? So I have to have multiple. So let's go ahead and make this a bigger database. Let's say it's 50 gigs now. And let's see how many files it's supposed to use at 50 gigs. There we go, that's better. So now you can see I'm going backups to 3 and then striping back to backups. If you don't understand how that works, then like I said, go look at the striping video. And now we're mirroring. We've got 4 of these too, and they're all going to the same location. Let's look at that command. Now I've got this fabulous little regex over here that'll straighten this stuff up for you. There we go. So you can see, I'll put a little bit of space between. So these guys are going backups, 2, 3. Oh, notice how I put the 2 over there accidentally? Yeah, I'll fix that in a second. And then mirror, 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 mirror. So all these guys are going to different places. Yeah, see, look what I did there. 2 backslash. There we go. And this is why we test these things. So okay, now I just took a backup to a stripe to multiple drives, and I mirrored to a single drive. Let's go ahead and add some more mirror stripes. I'll just add one more so you can see how that works. Let's take the mirror here. Let's copy it. Let's paste it in there. And now let's call this mirror 2, and let's put the 2 on the right side of the backslash. There we go. Now I should be able to stripe it to 2 mirrors. Let's see what that looks like. There we go. See? Mirror, mirror 2, mirror, mirror 2. So it's doing exactly what we would expect it to do. Now, if you have named database exceptions, this is where things can, I'm not going to say get a little thick, but you do need to understand how this works. Which database were we backing up? We were backing up bit. So let's go ahead and enter in an exception for bit. So I'm going to take the Minion default row here, and I'm going to put one in, and I'm going to say bit right there. And I've become obsessive about putting it in the comments as well. So I've got my bit main database here, and this is for all, right? So let's go ahead and make this, let's put this to bit so we can differentiate and know exactly where it's going. And then let's go ahead and do a mirror row for it. There we go. And we'll call this bit mirror. There we go. Now, if I didn't do this, if I have bit in here for the primary and I have it set up to mirror, then I also have to have a mirrored drive at the exact same level. It will not take the primary backup file here and then come up here and take the mirrored drive from Minion default. It will not do that. That's what I mean when I say I'm really driving this home. You have to, once you're at the database level, you have to stay there. So if I have an exception in here for this database level, and that's database and backup type, right? Then I have to have one in here for the mirror at that exact same level. So I have to have bit all and then bit all, and one is a primary and one is a mirror. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. There we go. Bit, 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 bit mirror, bit mirror, bit mirror, right? That's exactly what we would expect to see right here. So, now, let's see what happens, because this is all, right? So let's see what happens if we try to do the same thing with a log file. Oops. There we go. We get the exact same thing, right? Because this is for backup type. Let me expand that. There we go. Because this is for backup type all, right? But let's make this full and see what happens. You notice how I didn't get anything. That's because I'm at the database level, and the only row I have is for full. I don't have one for the log backup that I'm trying to take. So once you're at the database level, it stays there. That's why I always recommend that if you're going to go at the database level, have an all row that covers all of the backup types, and then you can start making exceptions. So now that I've got that, I could say that I want all of the backups to go to bit mirror except for the logs. Let me go ahead and finish copying this over. There we go. Except for the logs, and I'm going to have a different location to back up the logs and to mirror the logs to. So we'll call this bit log, and then we'll call this bit log mirror. There we go. Just like that. So now you see here I've got a catch-all for all of the bit backup types, and then I've got one specifically for a log, right? So let's go ahead and see what that's going to do now. And see, I've got bitlog, 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 and bitlog mirror, bitlog mirror, bitlog mirror. Now, if I go to do a diff, it should pick up that original one from all. See? It picks up the original one from the all because it's covered under the all. That's why we have the all row right there. It handles all of the backups except for the ones that you have exceptions for. So it handles all of the backup types except the ones you have exceptions for. And remember, it doesn't ever go back to the Minion default level. Once you have a database listed in here, you have to mirror it in there. Once you have a database listed in here, then everything has to mirror. It becomes its own setup at that point. So if you have a primary in here for logs and you want to mirror it, then you have to have a mirror location set up for logs. So if you have 40 databases and you want to mirror them all by name, then you have to put them all by name and backup type in here. If they're all going to the same place, then put an all location in there. If they're not, then you're going to have one for every single type. And there's no way around that. And it's not really that big of a deal, right? You just have to know this. So that's going to be your biggest hurdle when you're setting this up, is making sure that you have those correct. But again, making this SP call is the best way to make sure that you've got your setup correct before you have to rely on it. So always, when you change a setup, come in here and use this backup statement get SP and make sure that that your setup is doing exactly what you expect it to do. And I'm going to say a couple things again because they really bear repeating. Make sure that you have is active set to true. Use your comments, because this is another one of those places where you can have different mirror locations on different days or different mirror locations on different DR sites. And using these comments appropriately will make it really easy for you to flip this is active bit. If you ever jump over to your DR site, it'll make it a lot easier for you to flip that bit and make sure that they're going to the right location. Or if you need them mirrored somewhere differently on Saturday, then if it's Saturday, you need to detect that, and then you need to flip that bit ahead of time. So doing those comments is really a good way to make that happen. And don't forget that all of these guys can have separate retention hours. If you're striping for your primary backups like this guy is, right? I've got these 3, 1, 2, 3. All of these guys should have the exact same retention period, but his mirror has its own retention period. The same thing as with this. This mirror can have a week retention period, and so can this one, right? Whereas the primary backup files only have a 24-hour period. So there's a lot of power in putting the retention periods in the path table and attaching it to a drive. So anyway, that's how to mirror backups. You see, it's really easy, but it's also really powerful, and it doesn't require any extra jobs.